Jimmy Kimmel was just pulled off the air purportedly for saying something offensive about Charlie Kirk. But it doesn't add up, and it probably has way more to do with billionaires, billionaire companies, and corporate mergers. Let me explain. So what Kimmel said was not actually about Charlie Kirk directly. It wasn't one of these horrible things where people are somehow saying that he deserved it or something like that. What he actually said was, the MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. Now, we definitely cannot argue about the fact that there are people who are definitely using this politically and trying to say that it's reasons to not trust liberals and that liberals are evil, so on and so forth. But you might be going, well, wait a minute, why would he be blaming MAGA? That seems unfair. Is that even maybe victim blaming? Well, here's the thing, is we actually don't know why the murderer did the horrible thing that he did. Now, literally, prosecutors have not come out with some sort of profile of him. It makes sense to me. It probably makes sense to you to think, okay, this guy probably has some sort of like weird, twisted perspective on liberal beliefs or some sort of association with Antifa or something like that. But we actually don't have proof. Does it seem more likely that he viewed himself as associated with liberals? Probably, for sure. But that doesn't mean that, well, first of all, liberals in no way actually associate themselves with him, but we also don't know if he might have been what's called a groyper. Now, groypers have said that he's in no way associated with them. And that's probably also the case. But whether or not he thought he was associated with them, they happen to be a MAGA-affiliated group that has this history of having problems and criticisms of Charlie Kirk, and in fact, of accusing him of being fascist. Now, it doesn't mean the groypers had anything to do with it. But if he viewed himself as somehow being associated with that, maybe that's the reason why. We literally do not know. What makes the most sense to me is this guy was clearly messed up, probably was cherry-picking belief sets from all across the aisle that don't make sense together, and that explains how he's doing something awful, atrocious, and itself that doesn't make sense. But whatever the reasons happen to be, what Kimmel said had nothing to do with like Kirk deserving it or anything like that. So why was he pulled off the air? Well, it has everything to do, I think, with billionaires. Okay, so he was actually pulled off the air, not directly by ABC initially, but by Nexstar. Nexstar is a TV distributor. And they said, well, we don't like what he said. It's not basically reflective of their constituency, like the people who were watching their shows, so on and so forth. And so they said, well, we're not going to be showing him anymore. We're going to preempt him. So that causes ABC to say, okay, well, we're not going to do it because it's costing them money. But there was no like letter writing campaign on any major level from what I've been able to find. It's not like there was thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of people calling up Nexstar saying this guy needs to be pulled off the air. In fact, even Nexstar hasn't said anything like that. They're just kind of giving this value-laden idea. Well, we basically just don't like what he was saying. Well, what's the deal here? Well, Nexstar has been working on a merger with Tegna for $6.2 billion. And who has to approve that merger? You guessed it. To worry about like, oh, are we going to be seen as a monopoly? Are they going to let us do this thing that's going to make us a lot more money? Perry Sook, the CEO of Nexstar, has in fact said things that are complimentary about Donald Trump, specifically about what? Guess what? Deregulation. In other words, the thing that makes it easier for his company to merge with another. So before Donald Trump, this kind of thing where companies were trying to kind of like suck up to whoever the president was or the president's administration so that they could conglomerate together and make even more money. Now, Perry Sook, we do not know how much money he has, but he purportedly has a whole lot of shares of ownership of the company of which he's CEO. So it stands to reason that there is an excellent chance, though I cannot confirm this by any stretch, that if his company, Nexstar, in fact merges with Tegna, he stands to make billions of dollars. So my most paranoid thought is that Nexstar and possibly their CEO were just kind of like waiting in the wings, hoping to do something to please Donald Trump. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, it sounds a lot like what happened to Stephen Colbert. So you're kind of hoping that you can do something. Well, all right, this horrible tragedy happens. It's making liberals look really bad. The media is doing a great job of blaming liberals for it, even though as a as a liberal, we're all going, this is really awful. We don't want this kind of thing happening. When it happens to people on our side of the aisle, we think it's awful. We also think it's awful for you. And we proudly disavow anyone who's like, this guy deserves it, because the fact of the matter is his children certainly don't, and no one deserves this kind of action. But the fact of the matter is people have been using it on both sides of the aisle as a political bludgeon, but especially effectively on the right. So as soon as Kimmel says this thing that's even just a little bit too close to maybe something that sounds critical of Charlie Kirk or sounds somehow offensive, boom. They have the perfect moment to go make themselves billions. Now, you might be saying, I completely disagree with this. I was personally offended by that. It sounds to me kind of like it's close to victim blaming. All right, I'm not going to argue with you about that. It is literally not my place to tell you whether or not you should feel bad or affronted by a thing. If you do, you do. And my heart goes out to you for the experience that you're having in regards to the tragic loss of Charlie Kirk. The fact of the matter, though, is we really should be looking at the fact that we have all of these companies that are getting together, working together to curry favor with the president. And right now, you're winning a whole lot of battles, MAGAverse. You are, for sure. Congratulations to you. But at the same time, you should be asking yourself, are we making more money? Are we in a financially better situation that we are? Because a whole lot of rights are being cut and curtailed. There's a whole lot of people who are being censored, being fired, being canceled. When it felt like it was happening on your end, you were very, very upset about it. And maybe you're feeling like, okay, well, this is us getting even. But there's a whole lot of cases now that it's going to be hard to claw back things like our freedom of speech, right? Which should be protected. Even if what Kimmel said was hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. And I would be the first one to tell you that as long as it's like in a debate field, like it's not in some sort of place that it's not allowed, people can say whatever awful stuff that they want. That is literally a shared belief that we have. The fact of the matter is these rights are being pulled back. How do we get them back? Let me just put it like this. Here's the simplest way. Do you really believe that after all the liberals are silenced and after all of the liberals are canceled and that you finally won, right? You have all the levers of power. There's no liberal governors left. Do you really believe that all of a sudden all of these corporations that are working with the billionaire president are going to go, you know what? Now what we're going to do, we're going to take care of the American people. When you think about your boss, when you think about your company, do you really go, you know what? They have my best interest in mind. And when they're wheeling and dealing in the background with the government, whether it's like TikTok or Nexstar or whoever these companies happen to be, do you really believe that they are going to say, you know what, now that all the liberal voices are silenced, we are comfortable with their right to protest against us? In other words, when you find yourself in this situation that all these liberals are silenced and all there is left is you still struggling to make a wage, to pay for your food, to take care of your family like all the rest of us are, and you want to say something about it, you want to say the government is letting these corporations do these horrible things, there's a tyranny of billionaires, I'm just working so that their stock can increase, I don't have good health insurance, I can't take care of my family, and I work all the time. When you want to be able to complain about that, are you going to be allowed to? That's where we are right now. Those are the voices that will be silenced next. The ones that are speaking up against these kinds of corporate actions. Right now, you're loving it, but someday they might be coming for you too. It's worth thinking about. So, for those of you who are bothered by this event, you definitely can complain, right? You can cancel your Disney Plus subscription. You can write letters. ABC has like a complaint forum that you can use. Let them know what you care about. Use your freedom of speech while you have it. With that, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I hope things do not go as poorly as I'm beginning to think that they are in terms of all of us. All of us, every single one of us, MAGA, liberal, you name it, falling apart, engaging in violence against each other, both linguistically and apparently physically, whilst we watch our rights, or whilst we give our rights away. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.